Welcome to Bite Sized, a series where I take a short look at a short game. I don't have much time, so let's get going. The gist of my thoughts is this. Rayman for the Game Boy Color, which I'll just call Rayman for the duration, is a solid, if simple, 8-bit 2D platformer that benefits greatly from the C in GBC. I wouldn't call it a must-play for everyone, but if you're looking for a bite-sized adventure, this will do just fine. The console versions of Rayman, which I'll just refer to as the PlayStation version because that's the one I played, were released in 1995, so as you'd expect, the Game Boy Color follow-up was released in 2000? Jeez! I get it, they were waiting for when technology meets talent to make something groundbreaking, but it does seem they were a bit late. The PlayStation version is renowned as a tough-as-nails kiddie platformer, apparently due to a lack of playtesting according to the wiki. But in the half-decade they took to make the GBC version, it seems they decided playtesting might be a good idea because Rayman is way more accessible. It's still challenging, and you definitely will die, but it's nowhere near as demanding. And before we go on, full disclosure, I've played Rayman a bunch as a kid and beyond, whereas I've only played the PlayStation version once, with save states, and I used a code to open all the cages and unlock the Candy Chateau to play the final stages and fight Mr. Dark. That means I'll try to only refer to the PlayStation version if it bears mentioning. This game is more of a loose adaptation of the PlayStation version than a handheld port. The story follows the same general beats but is simplified, removing most characters. Mr. Dark imprisoned the Toons in cages and stole their energy, throwing the world into chaos, and Tings awoke Rayman so he could go release the Toons and defeat Mr. Dark. The Tings double as your generic collectible, guiding Rayman by lighting the path forward in most cases. The worlds are unique to this version as well, with some following a similar theme to the PlayStation version's worlds, like the similarities between Airy Toons and Bandland. Levels must be completed in order, as the map screen isn't unlocked until after beating the game, so you can't go back to missed or inaccessible cages until then, which is good because it means that you don't have to collect all the cages to fight Mr. Dark and beat the game, which is a change I quite like. Similar to the PlayStation version, Rayman gains access to some abilities during his journey. However, his starting loadout is closer to complete, already able to punch his telescopic fists and charge them to power up, climb vines, duck and crawl, and hang from ledges. He gains his helicopter hair ability to hover at the start of the Rainy Forest, and the grappling fist ability at the start of the Ancient Forest. There are also 3 super helicopter levels first showing up in the 3rd level of the Rocky Peaks. Rayman never gains the ability to run or hold things like he does in the PlayStation version, but I personally don't consider that a huge loss. Each of the 7 worlds has 3 or 4 levels Rayman must complete. Most are standard 2D platforming, where Rayman can collect Tings, hearts to restore health, gold fist power-ups, and 1-ups. He can also free Toons from cages and attempt bonus levels for a 1-up. These consist of time attack platforming gauntlets offering a pretty fair test of skill. The main goal in each level is to reach the exit sign to progress to the next one. Checkpoints aren't visible like in the PlayStation version, but are generously distributed throughout. One quirk of Rayman is that he sometimes must reach a specific spot in a level to trigger a platform to spawn in or a barrier to spawn out. This is true in the PlayStation version, but I found it more pronounced here, though it could be worse. The Tings usually do a good job leading you to these trigger points. Overall, the gameplay feels pretty good. Rayman's sprite size is well balanced with a small screen, so visibility issues rarely crop up. A minor annoyance is that if you move back and forth quickly, the camera just as quickly pans the way you're looking, which can be a little disorienting, but it's necessary in the resolution we're working with. Rayman's mobility feels very good. His walking speed is appropriate for the level sizes, which means he just doesn't need the run here. His crawl is pretty slow, but is rarely needed, but you will have to duck while standing on moving platforms to avoid obstacles quite a few times. There are also slippery surfaces where Rayman can build up momentum, and I found these sections to be a fun switch-up, especially in Airy Toons, right after completing the initial Spellbound Forest. Grabbing onto and climbing vines never feels finicky, but there are some platforms where the edges are a little vague, mainly hindering the ledge grab, which otherwise flows quite naturally. His punching is probably the trickiest skill because aiming his small fists just never gets easier. Thankfully, you can just post up near an enemy and take pot shots till you kill it, or just avoid the enemy entirely. Where the punching is at its worst is with the plums. Aiming your fists is again the issue, where they frequently miss the bouncing plum and then hit it on the return, pulling the plum in the wrong direction. Curiously, grabbing rings with the punch introduced almost no issues, which alongside the glide meshes flawlessly with Rayman's moveset and keeps the second half of the game from getting repetitive. Like the PlayStation version, you can keep an eye out for cages holding the captured tunes. Keep an ear out as well, because as you stray close to a cage, the music will change to encourage you to explore. Unlike the PlayStation version, opening all the cages isn't required to fight the final boss. It instead unlocks the Dark Legacy, 4 bonus levels which pleasantly surprised me with engaging, difficult yet fair levels that I wholeheartedly recommend giving a try after finishing the main game. One issue I have with the cages is that you'll soon find ones that you can't reach because you haven't unlocked the requisite ability. That means after defeating Mr. Dark, you'll have to backtrack to all the levels with cages you missed in order to play those extra levels. I understand that working in a Metroidvania or a 3D Collectathon, but this is a linear 2D platformer. It just doesn't pair well with backtracking. I know the PlayStation version did this too. I'll just never understand the thought process behind putting backtracking in a linear game like this. So I wholeheartedly recommend inputting this code to play the Dark Legacy levels. Another type of level is a vertical rising water or lava type level. Rayman must keep ahead of the water or lava and platform to safety. This is probably where you'll lose the most lives because mistakes usually mean death, and no checkpoints means each level must be completed in one go. Like with any auto-scroller, knowing what comes next is a big advantage, but these stages can be beaten on the first try if you really focus up. The last type of level features the Super Helicopter. Rayman eats a magical fruit which enables him to stay aloft by tapping the A button. Rayman controls well in the air. You have enough time to avoid most obstacles and enough health to tank a few mistakes. With just the right amount of checkpoints and heart pickups, these levels offer a nice change of pace and don't overstay their welcome. There are a couple one-off levels near the end. The first features Bad Rayman, falling right in Rayman's trail, causing instant death on contact, just like the PlayStation version. This is probably the hardest level in the game with its insta-death and lack of checkpoints. You must memorize the level to have a chance, but even then the execution can be tricky, specifically with the slippery platforms and the vague ledge grab. Like the rising water levels, knowing what's ahead is a huge advantage, and you can dance around Bad Rayman without getting touched with a little practice. It's hard, but you can do it. The second one-off is the next level, where your left and right inputs are inverted, again like the PlayStation version. It's not too bad, especially after that previous level, and doles out a couple of checkpoints to ease your passage. It exercises your brain in a new way, but I'm glad it only lasted one level. Bosses have been all but removed from this game. The only exception is a unique Mr. Dark fight to cap off the adventure. It involves dodging his attacks long enough so that he becomes a ball, which you have to punch 3 times, and the ball shrinks with each hit, becoming a smaller target. Its movement is erratic, but after the 3rd punch you're given a heart and must repeat the cycle 2 more times to finish him off for good. Not as hard as Bad Rayman, but you'll need to learn the strats to best him and see the ending. Remember, the game doesn't save, so write down or take a pic of the password so you can continue your file. I played the PlayStation version not long ago to see what it was like, and the whole time I was wondering, is my cherished Rayman really this soul-crushingly hard? And I can definitively answer no. Rayman is a game with solid controls and levels that present a fair challenge, all in a quick little package. Let me know what you think of the Game Boy Color version of Rayman, or give me a recommendation for another bite-sized game. Thanks again for checking this out, and I hope to catch you in the next one.